What is going on, everybody? It's Connor here from Unscripted, back again with another video. I got a new microphone here, as you can see, hoping the audio quality sounds a lot better in this video. And in this video, as you can see from the title, we will be talking about the top 5 standout players from CDL opening weekend. And as always, we'll be doing it off the script. Before we get into the video, just again ask if you could drop a like down below, leave a comment as well with your top 5 players from the event. Subscribe to the channel for all things CDL. You know, there's a lot going on right now, and I'm excited to keep pumping out the content. So I hope you're excited to watch it, and without further ado, let's get right into the video. Top 5 players from CDL opening weekend. Kicking things off at number 1, and this is kind of in order, you know, it's a loose order that can be debated, but I think this guy is pretty solidly the number 1 player from kickoff weekend, or opening weekend, excuse me. You know, I think if this is their first time watching Call of Duty or watching Cold War, and they saw the event, they'd probably think, oh, that guy must be the best player in the game. And I am talking about Hook of the Dallas Empire. So just some quick stats here. I'm sorry if you see me looking this way. I'm looking at my monitor with the stats. He had a 1.39 overall KD, which was first by far. He had a 1.54 hardpoint KD, which was also first. In search, he had a 1.11, which I think was just outside of the top 10, and then in control, a 1.26 put him at number 8 for the event. So, you know, it's a small sample size for sure, but it's a small sample size for everybody. And, you know, the small sample size we have, Hook played really well. You know, Dallas fell to 1-1 with that loss to Minnesota, but they are still going to be one of the top teams moving forward for sure. No doubt about that. They are a very solid team. They just ran into a Minnesota team who's very good at search and destroy, but you know, they're going to be right there in the thick of things, and that is surely going to be because of Hook and just all those guys. They're all good, but Hook was clearly the standout player from the team in this weekend. He was really the standout player for the whole league. You know, like I said, if that's the first time they saw the game, they'd have to think he's number 1 right now. So for that reason, I mean, it makes the most sense, in my opinion, to have him as the number 1 standout player from the opening weekend. Moving on to number 2, we have Dashi. So Dashi played very well for an Optic team who they dropped their series to FaZe, but for the most part they looked solid. You know, as we expected, they'll be a very good team, especially in the respawns. And you know, Dashi was by far, I mean, it wasn't even close, the best player from this team for this weekend. So he was by far the best player on one of the best teams, so he has to find a spot on this list, in my opinion. He rocked a 1.24 overall KD, which tied him for second with somebody we'll talk about here soon. A 1.11 hardpoint KD, which was 11th in overall, I believe. 1.31 in search, which was 9th, and I can't say for sure, but he might have been the only Optic player positive in search from the weekend. Maybe not, because they might have had positives against Paris, but definitely he was the best player against FaZe between the two searches, which not really saying a whole lot. But he held his own in search for sure. A 1.43 control KD, which was second as well. So just an overall impressive showing from Dashi. You know, he has one of the best AR shots in the league. I don't think really anybody would debate that. His gun skill is just amazing as he continues to improve his team chemistry with his team, and as they continue to improve in search, which I do think they will do. It's going to be obvious how good he is, especially when snipers come back into the game. It'll be even better. You know, he'll continue to just carry the team in the slaying. I think he's the best slayer on the team. Nobody's debating that. He's right up there with Envoy as the best search player so far on the team. All around one of the best, arguably the best flex in the league. He probably is the best flex AR in the league. Just a super impressive showing from Dashi, and someone who, despite being young, will probably lead his team moving forward. Moving on to number 3, we have the former MVP, the former Rookie of the Year, and the former World Champ. Of course, I'm talking about Simp, who some still consider to be the best in the game. He's definitely up there, and he showed why at the opening weekend for sure. A 1.24 overall KD tied him for second with Dashi, like I just said. A 1.10 hardpoint KD, which found him outside the top 10, but a 1.75 in search and destroy. Obviously, his strong suit, that's no secret. He's a very good search and destroy player. That 1.75 brings him actually in second to Awakening, but a 2.1. But Awakening only played 1 map of search, whereas Simp played 3. So a larger sample size for Simp, and a very impressive showing for him. A 1.30 control KD as well, which puts him at 5th from the event. So he was doing it in the searches, which we obviously know he's going to do, but he was doing it in the respawns too, which no one would say that Simp is a bad respawn player by any means, but he is definitely more known for his search and destroy prowess. So for him to be able to be in the top 5, in control KD, and top 2 in overall KD, just a very, very good showing from him. It can be debated who's the best player on the FaZe team. You know, they're all very, very good players, probably all top 10 players. but Simp's right up there, and he's got to be the number one on the team until proven otherwise. Abizi might have had him last year, but just based off the small sample size from this event, you have to go with Simp. And Abizi, we're going to talk about him here shortly, but Simp just looked amazing, and he led his team to a 2-0 start and tied for number one in the league. So for that reason, you have to have Simp on this list, and I have him at number 3. Moving right along, we have a fan favorite. We're talking about Kenny from the LA Thieves. So statistically, we'll start with his statistics. 1.15 overall KD had him 7th at the event. 1.13 in hardpoint was 8th. 1.69 in search was 3rd. That's a very impressive search and destroy KD. And a 1.02 control KD. So LA Thieves looked really sharp, especially in their first series against the Rocker. They just dominated the respawns, just completely destroyed them. Against New York, they won 3-0, but it was actually a very close series, despite what that might say. You know, all 3 games were very close, and they actually could have lost all 3. But regardless of that, Kenny himself, he had quite the event. It seemed like he was just, 2 pieces, 3 pieces, just completely slaying out. If Dashi's not the best flex AR in the game, Kenny is. I mean, he just looked amazing in this game, in this series, this weekend. Overall, as a team, they were really good in the respawns, in the searches, not so much. But Kenny himself, he was great in the searches. So their search success can pretty much be attributed to him from the weekend. Moving forward, I do think they will get. Well, I was thinking they were going to get better as the season went on, but how can they get much better in the respawns? They played very well, but they'll still improve, I think. And Kenny will be right there. He had, since his World War II days, he was not as good as he was then. Still a very good player, but this year, if this event means anything in terms of how the season's going to progress, Kenny will be right back there in the top 5 to 10 players for sure. And yeah, number 4 from this weekend, I have Kenny of the LA Thieves. And finally, at number 5, I'm kind of cheating here. I used 2 guys. I said Cami and CleanX, both from the Toronto Ultra. So in terms of just the 5 best players, maybe you wouldn't argue for these guys, but just standout players, I think for different reasons that I'll get to, these guys stood out to me personally. But first off, the stats, 1.19 for Cami. Overall, that was 4th, and a 1.13 for CleanX was 8th. In hardpoint, a 1.22 for Cami, which was 5th, and a 1.35 for CleanX, which was 2nd. They were both negative in search, so nothing much to talk about there. Cami did have a 1.24, which was 9th in control, and CleanX was negative again there. So, as you'll see, they were definitely good statistically, but they weren't as good as these other guys were. But they just stood out to me because they led their team to a victory against a team that didn't think they'd beat. That's just, to be blunt, that's the way it is for me. Toronto this year, they're sort of in that middle of the pack team. I saw a good comment on Reddit. I kind of think I agree with it. They said Toronto is the measuring stick of an elite team. The elite teams will beat Toronto, and the good teams who aren't quite elite will probably lose to Toronto. I think I agree with that, but just we saw their path to victory this year. If they're going to have a good year and surprise some people, it's probably going to run through Cami and CleanX. Bance was good at the Kickoff Classic, not as much this weekend. Methods actually played pretty well. He had a pretty high search and destroy KD, I believe, top 4 maybe. But just these 2 were consistently playing well, making the plays when needed. I think this is a duo that, to me, is the most underrated duo in the CDL. They don't get talked about enough, and like I said, if their team's going to have success this year, it's probably going to run through those 2 guys. So for that reason, these guys stood out to me, and I think they're in for a pretty good season. And finally, just for fun, we'll throw in some honorable mentions here at the end. So Gunless I have in his honorable mention. His stats actually they were nothing crazy from the event, but he was an honorable mention just because he dropped the first 40 bomb in hardpoint. And just, you could see that when he was playing well, his team was playing well. And in the respawns, that's how it's going to be for the Seattle Surge. They're going to run through him and Octane playing the ARs. And if they're playing well, the team will play well in respawns. And if they're not playing well, it won't go well. But when he was on, you could see how much of a difference it made for the team. Like I said, that 40 bomb and hardpoint was just super impressive. And even if his stats or his team wasn't as impressive as some of these other guys and some of these other teams, just for that reason alone, I have him as an honorable mention. I have a BZ in there as well. He probably could have been in the top 5, and most people will probably disagree with the fact that he wasn't, but he easily could have been. He had the big series against Optic, of course. The big 3-piece on Moscow Hardpoint to keep the series alive was the play of the weekend, in my opinion. That's got to be the play of the weekend. He played really well. His search game was on point again. He was in the top 5-ish in search KD. Against Optic, you could just see how many problems he was giving them. He was just a thorn in their side. He was always taking a different angle and catching them by surprise, picking up first bloods. I mean, his first bloods were just insane. I don't know. I don't know what the numbers were, but I just know from watching that he had so many first bloods, especially in the Optic games. Just a strong showing for him, and that pairing of him and Simp is just right back to where they were last year and where they were in Black Ops 4. Just an amazing submachine gun duo. I have Asim from the Subliners. Clayster could have been there too. I just wanted to pick one from that team. I went with Asim just because, the expectations weren't as high for him. He's originally just a fill-in pretty much for Hydra, but the way he played at this event would not surprise me at all if he's not the one subbed out for Hydra when he's able to play. So, Asim, it's not just because of the way, his pure stats maybe wouldn't get him on this list, but just the fact of him exceeding expectations and sort of making a name for himself. I like to see that, so I have him as an honorable mention. And finally, we have Accuracy. The Rocker with that big series win over the Dallas Empire. I feel like I had to have somebody from them on this list. And while Accuracy is not the most talented player on the Rocker, he actually might be the least talented player. He had a really good event. He was playing that anchor role that he plays so well. He played very strong in the searches, along with Major Maniac, of course. Really, the whole Rocker team could have been an honorable mention. Major Maniac made his plays. Priesta did not in the first series against the LA Thieves, but he played better against the Empire. Attach, always consistent. So any of those guys they did all deserve credit for their win over the Empire. It didn't surprise me the way it surprised other people. I think Rocker's a very good team. And like I said, I picked them to lose to Dallas 3-2, but I wasn't surprised at all to see them win 3-2. But if I have to pick one of those guys to give the shout out to, I will give it to Accuracy. So yeah, I guess that was what you could call my 9 standout players from CDL opening weekend. That's going to wrap up the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Like I said earlier, leave a comment down below. Let me know who you think some standout players were from the event. Be on the lookout for more content coming this week too. I will have my updated power rankings posted tomorrow, and then we will be right into previewing the matches for next weekend, assuming they're not canceled due to that crazy weather in Texas. Man, that looks rough for the players out there dealing with the snow. I'm used to it here. We get a lot more snow than that, but they're just not ready for it in Texas, and I hope they're all okay, and I hope we can see some Call of Duty this weekend. So again, thank you for watching. That's going to do it for the video. Have a good one, and I will see you in the next one.